So I said I was going to make a video on diversity and, Canadians disagreeing with it and whatnot, and here's the video, so I'm going to make it. Anyways, I seen it from Maxime Bernier, who tweeted it out. The Angus Reid Institute did some polls recently about a variety of topics. You can go check it out. But he tweets interesting results. A majority of Canadians want more cultural cohesion instead of encouraging more and more diversity. That's exactly why I said when I denounce extreme multiculturalism and the cult of diversity, and that's what the PPC stands for. So, I mean, again, that's a very good reason to support the PPC if you don't already. But getting into the polls, it was done by, like I said, Angus Reid, and they break it down by the three major parties, and then they break it down as a total. And total, I guess that I'll first discuss the points. The one is minorities should do more to fit in better with mainstream Canadian society, and the other one is we should encourage cultural diversity with different groups keeping their own customs and languages. Um, but anyways, as a whole, 56% of Canadians believe minorities should do more to fit in better with mainstream Canadian society. 84% of conservatives believe that. Just 36% of liberals and just 28% of the NDP. So the NDP is the one furthest out there on this. um, but anyway, the first thing that I have to point out, because people say, oh, only 56%, that's actually pretty close. Well, the thing that I would point out is that the mainstream media, the public schools, the universities are completely biased in one direction. Now, anybody that's willing to argue against this, like, I don't have words for you. I literally don't have words for you. That's like trying to argue in North Korea that the government isn't biased in any way, shape, or form, or in communist or Soviet Russia. Like, come on. Like, are you really gonna make that argument that the CBC and CTV and Global, mainly CBC, isn't biased to the left? Like, you have to be in one heck of a bubble to not notice that. Like, man, must it be weird being in such a big bubble that you don't think that CBC is biased. Like, wow. Like, literally, wow. Like, you are that is hard to pull off. Um, but anyways, getting back to it, my guess is that if the media was completely neutral on the issue and that they pointed out the negative aspects of diversity in a fair way, my guess is that the numbers would be about, I don't know, 70-75% negative, because the people on the left are, most of them are still going to support it no matter what. Now the moderate leftists would have no reason to support it if they knew the truth, but my guess is that the numbers would be about, I don't know, 70% against, about 30% for. It should be like 99% conservatives against it, because minorities vote against your own direct beliefs and wants and needs. Again, if you're someone on the right, you support less government involvement. If you're someone on the left, you support more government involvement. And people from the third world want more leftist policies. And it doesn't matter the generations too. It's not like second, third generations they completely changed their beliefs. No, it's not true. They very, very slightly changed their beliefs, if any. So that's not an argument as well. And the one thing I'd point out too is just how far out there the liberals and especially the NDP people out there, like wow, you guys are in a really weird place, because like I've made videos before, like how much more evidence do we need to question the idea? And like how much more evidence do we need to question the idea? Like crime is through the roof in Sweden. Tens of thousands of girls, and mostly a lot of them minors, have been sexually assaulted every year by largely immigrants from the third world. And yet you still don't question it. Like you're like it's very sad in that they're that desperate for votes that they're willing to let, like in the UK, for example, let tens of thousands of people, large, I mean the overwhelming majority of them are girls, get sexually assaulted a year just because they want votes. Like that is so effed up. It's not even like, that's on another level of being effed up. And that's something that I can't stand, is that people accuse the right of the right's position of being out there on this kind of stuff, but like you're just projecting. Like you don't understand. Like you don't understand whatsoever that it's crazy in that you look in the states too that illegal immigration costs the states over $100 billion a year. That if they could, I mean, it's never going to cut completely down, but if they could cut illegal immigration in half, which I think is very doable, that would save them like 50-60 billion dollars a year. Like that is an insane amount of money. Like imagine if that much more money could be put into the economy, to invest into the economy, like to help the poor. Like the left, oh, we love the poor so much, we care so much about the poor, but yet you're completely ignoring this issue. And like I said, I don't want to go off on too many tangents because there's so many tangents that you could go off here. But the main point I wanted to point out is that for all the people out there who disagree with the idea of mass immigration being this great thing, which is the majority of the clear majority of Canadians, and if you're on the right, it's like 90%, 80, 90%, like stop hiding your beliefs because the majority of not only the majority, the overwhelming majority of people agree with you. And that just goes to show more for the people that think, oh, the CBC and all the left wing outlets aren't biased. I mean, the quote unquote news outlets, if they weren't biased, then why do people who hold a position that the majority of Canadians hold are afraid to voice their opinions on? Like that from a common sense, way of thinking about things. If a group of people holds a position that the majority of Canadians hold, then why are they so scared to voice their opinions on it? Because it's very simple, because they're painted as racist and these horrible people by a minority of people who think that they're the majority. And that's the problem with the left, especially the far left, is that they think that the majority of people agree with them, like the ALCs of the world and her supporters, like the Bernie Sanders supporters. They think that the majority of people agree with them, especially on their side, and yet they don't. Like a very small percentage of people are actually socialists, like actually socialists. The problem is that they're so vicious and violent with putting their, and sometimes literally, sometimes most of the time figuratively, in getting their points across and their political opinions, is that they make it appear, and I mean they're very smart by doing this, is that they make it appear like the amount of people that agree with them is a lot more. And like I say, it's a very, very easy example to point out too, is that if there wasn't a bias against one side of this issue in society, then it should be the people that support mass immigration and diversity. They're afraid to voice their opinions, but it's the exact opposite. And that's where the bias stands, is that if there was a bias, if anything, you'd think that it'd be the other way around because the majority of people agree with it, but it isn't. So it's very, very crazy, and that's one thing that I wanted to point out, that I kind of just put two and two together on, and it's very crazy. But like I say, I wanted to make a video. Like I said, I was gonna make a video on the overwhelming majority of Canadians, especially if you're in a more conservative area and you're talking to a conservative, or someone who's at least a moderate, they don't support this kind of stuff. And that's what other polls have shown, that moderates used to be pretty down the middle when it came to issues. They used to be about 50-50, but now moderates pretty much overwhelmingly agree with conservatives more, because conservatives have came more to the left on the political spectrum in the last 10 or 20 years. The left has gone way, way to the left, like way to the left. And by default, if you're actually a moderate, then you'd be a lot more likely to agree with conservatives now, because conservatives have came to the left on the biggest issues that the left wanted them to come to the left on recently. I would say the majority of conservatives are either they're for gay marriage, or at the very least they just don't care. Maybe they disagree with it personally, but they're like, hey, if you want to do it, go ahead and do it. Um, a lot of them, I mean, at the very least, they don't want to go after abortion altogether. I think anyone who in the right mind doesn't at least want to consider banning abortion in the later terms is pretty crazy. Um, they're more anti-war. I think abortion is one that I think conservatives still would disagree with the left on largely. But when it comes to gay marriage, like the overwhelming majority of people don't care about that stuff anymore. The only reason that the left perceives it is that they're still projecting the 2000s, in 1990s conservatives onto these kind of stuff, even though the Clintons and the Obamas of the world in the 2000s didn't agree with it either. They conveniently leave that out, but yet they ignore the other stuff. But anyways, like the right has came to the left on the major issues. The right is no longer the